Hello, and welcome to Tonebender's Sound Design Podcast. This is the show where we talk with the sonic artists behind our favorite films, games, and series. Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Muirhead. Welcome to Tonebenders. This episode is presented by the Motion Picture Sound Editors. Last fall, MPSE sponsored Tonebenders to go to England and collect a bunch of interviews with members of the sound community based there. And we will be going back to London for our second Tonebenders Sound Design Meetup presented by the MPSE on August 24th at 7 p.m. After we were packed in extremely tight last year for this event, I have moved it to a bigger pub, so hopefully we'll all fit in a little bit better this year. So head over to the Crown and Two Chairmen in Soho to hang out with the London sound community and see old friends and colleagues, and hopefully meet some new ones too. Earlier this year, with the wild success of the Los Angeles Sound Design Meetup, it's put pressure on London to rise to the occasion. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Also, remember you have until August 15th to submit your favorite sounds and the tales behind them to be a part of our upcoming Listener Field Recording Stories episode. You'll find full details on how to join in the fun at tonebenderspodcast.com and click on the link at the top. This episode is a really special one. I was able to get at least one person from the sound team on every James Bond film since 1973, all together in one room for this really fun talk about what it's like to work on the storied franchise that is 007. This is a room full of heavy hitters, so get ready. Big thanks to Formosa for letting us use their main stage in their Trident Studios in Soho for this talk. That room is a legend unto itself. If you want to have a fun read, Google Trident Studios and learn about its prior life as a music studio and all the amazing records that were recorded there. Okay, let's get to the talk about James Bond. Here we go. So we're sitting here in Formosa Trident stage. I just found out that where I am actually sitting was like the vocal station for many of David Bowie's albums and Elton John's and maybe some Beatles as well. I'm feeling a lot of pressure to be amazing here. But we're going to be amazing because this is going to be a fun talk. We're going to talk about kind of the legacy of sound in the James Bond films. We have four guests who collectively have worked on every James Bond film since, I think, 1979. But Graham, you might even be able to confirm.
Whenever Live and Let Die was.
Live and Let Die,
the first
okay.
one I was seriously involved with. Before that, I was just part of the Pinewood Sound team that often got roped in to help out on a Bond film or got to the ADR, get involved in the ADR theatre, Foley theatre, transfer bay. The whole sound department was sort of involved when we did a Bond film. We all loved it because Toby was a great boss.
Amazing.
1973.
1973, okay. So a couple years. I'll kind of introduce you in reverse order here. So Michael Fenton was the sound designer on the most recent Bond film, No Time to Die.
One of the sound designers.
One of the sound designers, correct, yes. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming out today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And then Karen Baker-Landers was a supervising sound editor on Skyfall and Spectre. She flew in all the way from LA just for this to join us here in London. That's totally correct, and I swear by it, and it's totally true. Welcome. Thanks for coming today.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Then we have Mike Presswood-Smith, who was the re-recording mixer on Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace.
Yes, hello. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Just let me catch my breath here before we go through this. Here. We have Graham Hartstone, who is the re-recording mixer on Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, A View to a Kill, The Living Daylights, License to Kill, GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, and Die Another Day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Corrected. I was a recording mixer on the earlier ones of those. I was just like the effects recording mixer. There was a chief or a lead recording mixer. It was Gordon McCullum. I can't remember which was the first one I actually mixed. It was the last Roger one, I think.
Well, thank you for coming in to talk to us today because I was trying to figure out, how am I going to make this work? And then saw your IMDb page and I was like, okay, we got this figured out now. This is amazing. And it's also interesting because your last name is Hartstone, and a big supporter of Tonebenders is Nina Hartstone. And I was like, okay, well, they're both from London. They both are in sound. They must be related somehow. And I Googled and I couldn't find anything online saying if you were related or not. So I just emailed Nina and was like, are you related? Yes, he's my dad. And she hooked us up, and you were amazing. I sent you the pitch and immediately you were like, I'm in. So that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Very proud dad, I have to say.
As you should be. She's pretty awesome. Before we get into anything technical, just kind of like the idea of a Bond film is an iconic thing. Maybe we can kind of go around the room and talk about, wow, I just went hard on the Canadian about there again. Talk about, I can't not do it. Okay, let's move on.
Own it.
Yeah, exactly. I got to own it. Talk about the feeling you felt when you first found out that you got the gig. Michael, do you want to go first maybe as the most recent?
I was working with Oliver Tarney at the time. We'd done a thing called the rhythm section when it was for Barbara Broccoli, and we were hoping that it might lead to it. It went very well and it was all good, and a couple of years later then this was announced as a movie that was happening. It was like, fingers crossed, maybe we'll get it. And Oliver obviously went and got the job, and when we found out that it was kind of happening, it was just mind-blowing, really. You know, to be involved in the kind of lineage of films that it is, and to be part of it is, phenomenal.
Mike?
Spy Who Loved Me is probably one of the reasons I'm doing the job that I do now. Because I remember being a kid and watching that and just going, wow. It was at the cinema and thinking, someone did that. Well, you did that. And it wasn't just the sound, the whole thing. So I just completely fell in love with the Bond franchise from a really early age. So to sort of get invited in to work on it was like, it's obviously the ultimate sort of goal. Actually, it didn't really hit me until we were first day of the final mix, when all the music came in and I just put the music up on the mixing desk and soloed through and found the guitar and listened to it doing its little down now thing. And I actually left the room, went up to the toilet, said, I've just got to go for a pee. and I went to the bathroom and I kind of looked at myself and went, wow, you know, you're doing one of these. It was like a real moment for me. Huge moment, yeah.
Karen?
The first thing I thought is that I'll finally be cool in front of my brothers because the Bond franchise, it was intimidating because I knew that we were going to fly to the UK to do the mix. And as working with Sam Mendes was kind of an epic thought. I first fell in love with the Bond films on Live and Let Die. And it was that opening with, was it Wings?
Yeah.
Da-na-na, you know, when you, that just drew me in. And I remember seeing that in a theater and just kind of, it was a bit of a moment where an amazing film and something that was cool and fun and all those kinds of things. So I was very excited when I found out I was going to do, but I was also very intimidated. One of those very rare films that when people ask you what you're working on, they know it. Yeah. Usually you go, I'm working on this film, and people go, oh, I don't know, I haven't got a clue. And this, you go, I'm working on James Bond, and everyone goes, oh.
Yeah, you're right.
Graham, so I think your story is a little different. You kind of grew into it, right?
Well, yes, as part of the Pinewood Sound team, everybody got involved with a James Bond film in some way or another, small ways and big ways. We loved working for Cubby. He really looked after us, you know.
Cubby.
Broccoli. Yeah. We worked long hours, but he fed us well and we had good parties, you know. It was part of a very privileged career at Pinewood.
Amazing. Bond's been around for so long, and it's changed so much over the years. I'm wondering if maybe we can talk about how, for you, Graham, maybe how it changed over the many films you worked on. And for everyone else, maybe what the director came to you saying how they wanted movies that you were working on to be different from what had come before. So, Graham, do you want to kind of talk about how it evolved from the first ones to the late 90s?
We were quite surprised at how graphically violent, was it Live and Let Die, Timothy Dalton's first one, had got. And this was apparently as a response to Lethal Weapon, which, you know, was taking all that a lot more seriously than Bond had. That got quite gritty, that one.
Yeah. And less quips as well.
Oh, yeah, much more serious, wasn't it?
Yeah. Less kind of, dead tired or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, Mike and Karen, I feel like when Daniel Craig became the new Bond, there was quite a large change there.
Casino Royale was his first one, I guess. There was a very different direction, I think. They were very much trying to internalise it, make it much more about him as a character rather than just the spectacle of what it had been before in some ways. So I think there was a drive to try and make it more about what he was going through as an agent, as a secret agent, and his dilemmas and his stakes. There was a sort of drive to make it a bit more visceral. And obviously they're introducing a new Bond, so it was very uncharted territory that they were treading. Everyone was very concerned about him, whether people were going to accept him. You know, there was a whole weird blonde, not Bond. Do you remember all that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but it was like, suddenly when he got cast, it was like, no, he's not the guy, he's blonde. I mean, it was like, what? Why is that? Why does that matter? And there was so much ownership outside, you know, everyone seemed to own Bond, you know. Everyone's got their Bond, you know. So when he came along, there was a lot of concern whether he was going to do it, and he did, you know. So it was quite a tightrope act for them, I think, at that point. But
I'd like to give a shout out here for Martin Campbell, who introduced the new Bond with GoldenEye, and then the next new Bond with Casino Royale. Very difficult things to do to make a film that actually sits and allows you to change such a iconic lead character like that. And Martin did great both times, I think.
Yeah, he absolutely
really did. When I retired, the last day actually in my office, and I was just walking out to my car through the cutting rooms, and Martin was in a cutting room. He said, "Hey, Greg, come in." And he played me the artist test of Daniel on the Moviola, not the Moviola, on the Steenbeck, you know, and he said, "What do you think of him? Will he could he do?" So, what can I say? I was, yeah, looks good to me. But no, I really think he managed twice to get over what were going to be very difficult things for the Eon company to get over, and he did it both times very successfully.
Because I wasn't that into the earlier Bonds. I had older brothers, and they were quite into it. Coming into the ones with Martin Campbell and Daniel Craig, from a female perspective, that was a much more appealing
that's interesting, yeah.
character.
Yeah.
So I was,
deeper.
yeah, it was deeper. I mean, it's hard to say that the other guys weren't sexy, but he was just sexier in a way that more serious and mysterious and cool. I just thought that brought a lot of the female fans in a different way. That
he was flawed as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think he hadn't really been flawed before, but it was like suddenly he was like had a heart, he had issues.
Yeah. And the way he was with his own inner thoughts and his own inner struggles, it was, you wanted not to be the woman on the arm of James Bond because of the look, but because of the character. Because I'd done the Bourne films, and there's Jason Bourne, and who's cooler, Jason Bourne or James Bond? I have to say James Bond.
But they were such a huge influence on the rebooted Bonds.
Yeah.
That's the kind of amazing thing that, you know, that film franchise changed the Bond film franchise.
They felt very like you could take Jason Bourne. I think the Bourne films were wonderful, but yes, fight sequences, car chases.
You're much more with the main character as opposed to watching the whole thing. You're just like, you're in it and it's happening.
Ironically, that and, you know, the JB, Jason Bourne, James Bond, you know, inspired each other, sort of cross-referenced each other, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
Was it mentioned that that's why you were hired, because you had worked on...
No. We were hired, I believe, hopefully because they thought we could maybe do the job, but Sam Mendes and Scott Milan, who's a re-recording mixer, and someone I'd worked with since I was an assistant, had recommended.
Yes. There was one. Yes.
Probably at the time of Bourne, done more films with Scott and learned more about the craft of what I do from watching him mix. I think Sam brought us, my partner Per Hallberg and I, over to do it.
Had you worked with Sam Mendes before? No.
I worked on a film that he produced. He was around a lot, and he was around at previews. So I did meet him. But no, I had not worked with him as a director.
Well, speaking of collaborators, in the Bond films, I feel like the franchise was an innovator picking up the pace with fast picture editing cuts. How does that inform your sound work when you're working on these films?
This fast cutting, which was started by Peter Hunt and carried on by John Glenn, you never had time to analyze.
Yeah.
You were just swept along on this journey, this ride. So if you started to analyze, you know, the plots don't make sense. So, you know, you just didn't. You just carried along on this ride that went at a phenomenal pace. And that was Peter Hunt to begin with, as I say. That was new at the time.
And I also think that kind of editing sonically, from a sound perspective, it really is a harder thing to do to tell the story. Sound becomes kind of like a sonic compass in a way where you're cutting so quickly. You've got to hit cuts, or do you let the music take it? Or there's a lot more sonic work in those films, from editing, designing, scoring, and mixing.
Yeah,
Yeah, because like you're saying, but you can't hit all of those cuts, because if you hit all of those cuts, it's horrific, isn't it? You have to choose those moments.
The Bourne movies. That's what sort of introduced that.
Yeah, those were so hard to kind of grasp, and then you have to sit back and watch the movie to think that I messed that up.
Something that everyone thinks about when they think about James Bond movies is the cars. There's always a super cool car, super modern car. Karen, do you want to talk about, did you have to go record the car?
On Spectre, I think that's when they introduced the DB-10, and that was for the movie. And so, yes, we sent someone out to record the car very specifically, and we did do recordings of the DB-5. So when we were over here, we did do a whole series of recordings. Charlie Campagna, one of our recordists, who's just got a feel for cars and giving you the material so you can make those quick cuts cool and fluid. It's kind of all about the car. I was just reading something recently where someone said, did the DB-5 in Skyfall, did they really blow up the original?
The original one.
I know, but you kind of get sad on that shot, where they're just killing the car. And that's when Bond finally, you just see him, he's like, that's it. You go after my woman, you can go after me. You cannot go after my
touch the car.
And that's where he just loses it. And he goes, full Bond.
I want to throw out a big thanks to the motion picture sound editors for sponsoring this series on the sound community in London. MPSE is a great organization that I've been a part of for the last 7 years, and I've really enjoyed the advantages of being a member. Perks include the quarterly magazine called Wavelength that is exclusively about sound editorial and the people breaking new ground in the field. There are also the many live events put on by MPSE, including sponsoring past Tonebenders meetups in London, Toronto, and LA, and obviously, the Golden Reel Awards Gala. Another big advantage is by being a member, you vote for the nominees and winners at the Golden Reels, which means you get access codes to just about every movie and series that comes out during the year. To become an active or international member of MPSE, you must have 3 years or more professional experience as a sound editor or sound designer. This can be for editing dialogue, ADR, sound effects, Foley, or music in film, television, or the gaming industries. But remember, even if you're just starting out, you can join as an associate member and get most of the perks and then be upgraded once you meet the qualifications. For full info, go to mpse.org and click on Membership. If you have any questions about becoming a member, feel free to reach out to me via info@tonebenderspodcast.com or talk to the MPSE itself. Michael, you did a lot of car work on No Time to Die, right?
Yeah, I wasn't on for the first couple of attempts. There was Brian Bowen was on, and Elam Hoffman with James Harrison, and Oliver was on at the beginning, and then he sort of came on a little bit after as well. Elam was sound recorders as well. And so when they went out to record all the cars, I think they recorded 3 Aston Martins. They gave us Range Rovers as well, because they'd introduced this new Range Rover, which the baddies had, which couldn't catch Bond's Toyota, whatever it was. He was out driving. You're thinking, did you do this deal right? But yeah, I came on and they'd done all the temp work for the cars, and I replaced all the temp stuff with the proper car for like the Matera Chase. And then, you've got to get good recordings, but you've also got to get someone to drive it properly. Like that's one of the main things that, you'll think, if you get a library sometimes and you're like, this is exactly the car that I want. And you listen to it and you go, yes, it's the right car, but it's not being driven in the correct way. And the one thing that you get when you get these good sessions of going to a place and getting the right car, you usually get the proper drivers as well to be able to kind of drive it in the way that they do on the picture.
Because it's completely different, isn't it?
It's completely different. And then you have to go even further when you're cutting it. Dopplers, always everything goes down, but you always want him to be speeding up. So you have to kind of counteract Dopplers. So when he goes past, he goes even faster.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes.
I hadn't even thought
Yeah.
that. That's great.
Because otherwise, your energy is
Yeah,
going.
it's
Is going. It's going. Oh, you're going faster. He's going faster. He's going faster. He goes past, and he goes.
There you go.
Yeah, but you want him to keep going faster.
On Quantum, there was a big chase at the front, and I think they smashed up quite a tasty amount of Aston Martins during that. I think it's like 7 or 8 or something. Actually, one of the things that was quite nice from a mix perspective on that, it was an intense car chase, but the music sort of came in and dictated it quite a different sort of intensity. It was a very cerebral sort of track that came in at the front if you watch the beginning of it. And so we quickly went from a very sort of cutty, tight car chase action thing to this really quite opaque effects track with the music leading and then cutting very hard into it when they at a certain point after a crash and stuff. So from a mix point of view, that was a lot of fun to kind of change the dial on that, because most of the chases that have happened in Bond are always like, intense. And so on that one, it was a bit more, we kind of went in and out a bit of, and it sort of felt like, in a way, you were hearing it from Bond's perspective rather than just as an audience. It was like a sort of memory, or there's a lovely sort of subjectivity to it. I really enjoyed that part of it. I've watched it a couple of times since and thought, we really did something a little bit different at that point, But just cars, Bond cars, the Lotus Esprit Turbo is the one for me.
Yeah.
Any day of the week. Sorry, I know I should be saying Aston Martin, but it's that one.
Well, that's thinking about gadgets and all those things.
sorry.
That was at the top of my list of if you can call a car a gadget.
Yeah.
It is.
But it's got all the things, isn't it?
I still want one.
Yeah. I had the toy car
Oh, do you?
with the fins. I had the little one, about that big, a Matchbox car. Yeah.
Graham, it's pretty obvious that what you were doing on Moonraker is very different from what Michael was doing on the film that came out a couple years ago. Earlier, before we were rolling, you were talking about how you were doing the premixes. Do you want to talk about the process that you were doing?
Back in the sprocketed days, all the sound effects were provided on magnetic tape, in reel lengths, 2,000 reels, 1,000 in the early days, and then 2,000 reels of. The job used to be split up. There would be a sound editor who would do the cars, a sound editor who would do the guns, a sound editor who would do horses if there were, whatever. What we used to do then, we would have all these cue sheets with all this material on it. We'd put them all out on the floor in the theatre and mark them up as to where they could be pre-mixed. If there's a car chase at the beginning and a gunfight at the end, you could put that on the same pre-mix, because there was a limited amount of 6-track machines that you can play. So we would mark them all up, and the three of us would sit down and pre-mix all those cars, working to a 35mm picture, which we had cued with telegraph lines that went across the screen, and when it reached the end, that was the cut, so we could make our changes. And we looked at every shot and decided, what do we want to hear on this shot? What's the most important thing? And if we hear that, how does it progress through the shot? We do that for every shot as to how we think it's going to be in the final mix. Panning, EQ, level. Those premixes would be played all together, when we said we were all going all tracks now, and the lead mixer would have the dial-up premix and the musics, and there were 2 other mixers who had all the effects, Foley's, atmospheres. Hopefully, the first run through, we put all our failures flat, and hopefully the first run through wasn't too bad. It was getting there. And we would run it for the director and probably the editor, and they would make their comments. And the best plans were, especially if you knew the director well and worked with them before, you say, okay, you go away now and come back when we've licked those bits into shape that you want licked into shape. And that's the way we proceeded. Big difference then was one reel at a time, no more than 20 minutes.
Mike Presswood Smith, you just said that scene you were really proud of.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have a scene that they look back at as being really proud of, Karen?
I do, and it's not what you would think. It was in Skyfall, and it's when M and Bond are going out to Skyfall, and they stop and they get out of the car, and they overlook that beautiful shot overlooking Skyfall. And there were a lot of birds in production. And, sometimes when they're filming, that you might be by some nest or you're the birds are just particularly angry because there's film crew out there. And you have this beautiful dialogue, and that was kind of all the way through. It literally took days, where we start with, like I say, Bond and M pulling up, stopping and getting out of the car, all the way through to where Javier Bardem's character comes in on the helicopter and just annihilates Skyfall. We took out all the birds, production birds we could, cleaned it out. Then we put in what I call emotional birds that worked around dialogue, worked around score. This took days and days. I worked with Peter Stabley on this. I called them birds that blurred the line. They were like a connective tissue when you had to go into a bird that you couldn't get out of in production. But it had to just sit in the pocket. Literally, it took weeks, actually, to clear it out and then sit there and watch that whole, because it was a long period of time. Birds back in, or a loon, or something. So you took them all out just to put them back in, but then they worked with the story and they worked with the emotion. I watch that and I think of all the times sitting there going, well, that one little tweet, well, that just screwed up.
Takes you out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off of M, we attached a very moody bird to her because there's really nothing else going on out there. So I love that scene, the amount of effort that no one will ever know that you put in.
Graham, do you have a favorite scene that makes you proud?
No, the things I'm most proud of is protecting the dialogue, which I hope nobody notices, because they used to ADR a lot, but I always used to try and save the original wherever I could, and I did on a number of occasions. And I remember one particular long scene. Don't ask me which film it was now, because they're a bit of a blur, but it's a long dialogue scene which was tracking down some stairs, and they ADR'd the whole thing. So I pre-mixed all of the ADR, then I pre-mixed all of the original the best I could, and I dropped in sometimes just words of the ADR where the original was unusable. I'm very proud of that. It just flows through. It's just a complete mixture of dialogue, of sync and ADR, and that's not easy to do, so I'm very proud of that.
Well, I think for context, there might be some people just starting their career listening to this and thinking, okay, well, you put a word in. When you were doing it on mag tape, yeah, and also mixing it with no automation as well, right?
That's why I did the two complete premixes, and I would just key from one to the other, like that, in mid-sentence.
It's amazing the timing that you had to have.
Yeah.
Amazing. I was talking about this with the director that I'm working with, DJ Crusoe, that Mike and I are working with right now, about how film was tangible. When people learned on film, because I did work with MAG. I was just starting out as an assistant, but I did a lot of handling it. And I worked with a sound supervisor, Frank Warner, who'd done like Raging Bull, and wonderful sound supervisor, but he would have me take all his MAG library after he had cut and throw it all away. Like he never wanted stuff he had done to be on another film. Doug Hempel, I don't know if any of you guys know of Doug, who's a wonderful mixer and somebody I love dearly, and I've worked with him a lot. He said, oh yeah, we would all go into the dumpster and pull those things out. And you're like, oh my God, I never thought about that. But yeah, MAG that was a very, I'm glad that I had an opportunity to deal with.
Yeah, going through a dumpster looking for sounds. It's like, what? It's a different universe, isn't it?
Body hits, those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very inspiring to think about you mixing these huge films live, essentially, without automation. It's
part of what I enjoyed listening to you about was the planning of it.
Yeah.
These days, because you can change everything all the time, it means that planning isn't relevant, or at least that's the theory, is that you don't really have to think about it. But actually, you do have to think about it. It's still there. It's still like, what room have we got for this, and what's the most important sound in this section? And those choices, because they were so sort of visceral for you in those days, because it meant actual tracks, they had to be made as part of the process, whereas now you have to kind of fight for that time to get that process.
I was thinking about this the other day, watching some clips of Bond and going through old films. I suppose in the planning of making of filming the shots and deciding and storyboarding the film, you're deciding we want this shot here and then that shot and then this shot and then Bond's going to do this and then go there, so that the recuts aren't happening like we would get recuts.
Yeah.
So every shot had a point. Yeah. And often now you're putting together
Yeah,
or shots are being put together to try and get a point across, as opposed to like that shot is
because
doing
it's easier to just get the shots.
and then put them together afterwards.
In the end roller of GoldenEye, it says edited on film.
Does it?
Oh, how interesting.
That's funny.
I think it was the last one.
Was it?
Yeah.
I do think that going from the planning that you're speaking of to having things so readily available to change and to try, and I learned that to sit on a dub stage. He said, just sit on a dub stage and listen to the mixers speak, listen to the director, everybody kind of talk. And I learned a lot. I think that we rush things so much now with schedule and then it's like, okay, you get to a playback. Okay, we do fixes. Okay, we move on. Someone like Sam Mendes, he'll have 3 playbacks, which is brilliant because he has a playback for himself. You have one for studio, and then you have one again for yourself or for Sam. So you can see if what you've done on these other 2 actually
Worked.
are telling the story. And I see it, I hear it in films. Mike can attest to this. I'm a bit of a nitpicker.
I'm not saying anything.
It's like that's part of what you're talking about. It was a planning. There was a concept. You try to do this stuff, but things happen so quickly. Once you get to the mix, it's go, 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 right? But I think that's probably the last thing it should be. You should be able to sit there with your director, with the mixers.
It's that.
What
it's
are
that
you
thinking.
trying to achieve on this
It's
shot?
the thinking time. It's
It's
the
thinking
thinking time. Yeah. Just because you can do it all and have it all, it doesn't mean to say you don't need the thinking time still. You still need it.
I'm sure yourself, use rewind sometimes instead of locate. Give your brain time to kind of go.
I'm going to start doing that. Yeah.
In one of the Bonds, Skyfall, I think, there was where Bond goes underground to train, and we had the train, the sound of the subway or the train going over, and rhythmically, you sit there and you think, is that too many? Is that not enough? It's how are you feeling? Like, when you have the time to do that, films come out and they're just epic. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
You take it in. And I remember it crushed me because I was putting in the trains and I was really working around score and trying to get it just right. And being a woman on a Bond film was, I had done enough, but still I was kind of...
Really?
Yeah. Especially being an American woman, I'm just going to say, talk about the blonde Bond. It's like, here comes this girl from Orange County. We played it back. I said, I think we need to add some trains. It wasn't like I was counting trains. I lost the feel. So we've got enough trains. And then later, wonderful picture editor, Stuart Baird, when another playback, and he said, I think we need more trains. I was like, thank God. Because taking that time to make a scene work, you should do it on a mixed
and it's
stage.
cumulative as well. It's not like often you're talking about the playbacks that Sam had. You don't really get a feeling that a scene in isolation is working fine, but in context, and you need that context to look at not just a reel but a whole movie to kind of go, oh, that needs something else, or the music doesn't need to be there, or that's what I was talking about, thinking time as well, which is, coming back to the old ways of doing it.
That began to happen with temp premixes and preview mixes. In the early days, we never had such thing as a temp mix. We just mixed it and it went out. And that was that. Occasionally, for comedies, they would run it in a local cinema and the producer and director would sit in the back.
Just to see
there were no cards or anything. They'd sit in the back. But we began to have temp premixes of Bonds and things, and that is good to see with audience.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's kind of gone full circle. It used to be you'd have a temp dub and you'd get all the creatives together, music for the first time, effects, director gets to hear the dialogue and everything together, and you'd have 7-10 days, which some times you still do, but so many times it's like you have 3 days and it's about a preview. It's not about the creatives getting together, and so it's hard to sell creative thought time.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to pay for that.
You don't want to pay for it, no.
The mixing stage is the most expensive part of the process, so I understand that. But when you see someone like Sam work and how much he was given to do, he was given a lot of freedom. That's the craft, right? That's the art of making a film sound amazing, or a film just be amazing. is this, so much of that thinking time.
I'm sure Mike will agree. We have to be diplomats as much as anything else, because there's this director who's probably been working on this film for years, and this process, the final mix, is the last creative process. And then they're very nervous quite often, and they try and make you put things right that they thought they wanted to do differently, usually by making it louder, which doesn't help. We have to reassure them, as well as mixing the film, we have to keep reassuring them that actually that is working, that's all right.
Midwifery. Is that what I call it often?
A difficult birth.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't believe it yourself.
On the various animated series I work on, we get the finished picture delivery a day before the final playback with clients. For a long time, I would put up the new picture and then all of the premix audio, and I would watch it through really closely, like a hawk, to see if anything had changed. Inevitably, every now and again, I would miss something in the background that's moved by 7 frames, or a character's mouth that is now closed. And then when we were doing the playback, the director would have to stop and point out a fix. It's not an ideal way of working. Now I use Matchbox Change Management tool from the Cargo Cult to quickly run a comparison between the 2 versions of the picture, and Matchbox will notice everything that is different and flag all the changes for me. This not only saves me time, it saves the whole crew time, as everything is all ready to go and allows for fewer notes during playback. It also reduces my stress significantly, as my confidence is high that I have a mix fully ready to play for the clients. And that's just a small portion of what Matchbox can do, especially now that Matchbox 2 is out. Its new intelligent image matching is particularly amazing. It can match shots even if they have had significant visual changes, like the entire backgrounds replaced or extreme color grading. On the other end of the scale, the new diffing mode can detect differences down to the change of a single pixel. Using the follow DAW mode, you can see both versions of picture rolling in real time, easily showing you what has changed. Reconforming in Pro Tools with Matchbox 2 is now much faster and more reliable. The Smart Conform mode performs the reconform on a clip-by-clip basis, maintaining head and tail fades, leaving less of a cleanup job for the editor. The Cargo Cult's Matchbox 2 reveals the differences, reports on the damage, and then retimes your sound mix, saving you incalculable amounts of time. There are too many additions and improvements with Matchbox 2 for me to even mention here, so head over to thecargocult.nz or go to the link in the episode description in your player app to learn more about Matchbox 2 and pull down the free 15-day trial. Matchbox 2 is exactly what you've been waiting for. Spend your time being creative and let Matchbox handle the conforming. Graham, I wanted to ask you about the idea. The James Bond franchise has kind of transcended all the technical advances. You started in mono, right?
Yes.
So do you want to talk about what it was like to open up to stereo?
Yeah, it was great, because, I mean, the way we used to deal with the difficulty of a music effects balance in the early days was to, if you had a chase or a fight going on, you went as far as you could with just the effects. And then we brought the music in at a change of mood, or when Bond gets the upper hand, or when he gets, or the baddie gets the upper hand, depending upon the music. But we used to save the music, instead of having the music going all the way through. When it came in, it meant something, and
I like that.
that was our way that we could do all the best we could on the important bits of the effects. And, quite often cut to a long shot, so you can bring a bit of music in there. Although looking back on some of the old ones, we didn't. We just carried, which you wouldn't do these days, perhaps. And then, of course, when stereo came in, we all longed for stereo. And when stereo came in, that allowed us all the things that we wanted to do with surrounds and everything. Interesting anecdote on, what was the film?
Spy Who Loved Me.
Spy Who Loved Me. We mixed it in mono, and for the world premiere, we did a quick stereo mix on Vauxhall Magnetic 35mm. And we went up to the Odeon Leicester Square to rehearse it before the premiere, and we started playing it, and there were no surrounds at all. everybody was taking the drains up, trying to find out why the surrounds weren't working. And in the meantime, an elderly woman came in to rehearse with the organ in the Odeon, which came up out the floor. She was trying to rehearse, and we were trying to hear the surrounds. Anyway, we gave up in the end. Anyway, we went back to Pinewood and put it in our preview theatre and played, and some of the surrounds worked. And then we played it again, and even more of them worked, with that narrow little band of magnetic down the side of the film for the surround track. If that little tiny narrow track had enough contact with the head on the projector, then they don't think, well, this is what wasn't happening. It was just too bumpy, that little narrow track. But the more we played it, the more we smoothed it off, and we kept playing
like the emotion of the film.
Until, well, it's a magnetic track. It was like painted on, which we managed to get it to play all the way through. So the premiere went okay.
So do you think that you put more music in films when you got to stereo?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I think everybody did. I mean, there was a period when some films were seemed to be like 80-piece orchestra from beginning to end.
Yeah.
I won't name them, but they were. And to me, the music needs to mean something.
Yeah.
And if it's going all the time, it means less when it just changes than if it actually comes in or stops. That's the other thing. It makes a big difference when it stops.
It's interesting because when you're talking about choices, you're kind of limited on what you can do or the way you can do it. Your choices might even be better because they're more thought out. That's so interesting that you said that about how you would mix. You would let the chase play out, bring the music in when it would mean something. Now I want to go back and watch your films because so often you feel like it's just 90 minutes of score, or you just have these low-end drones that are synthy and they eat up magic and detail, so you're trying to do something really...
But the music came in when it was needed, rather than
That's just so
insecurity,
Yeah.
The Bond theme when we needed it,
Yeah.
which wasn't always supplied. Sometimes in those early films when what was supplied wasn't the traditional Bond theme, we used to go to the vaults and pick one out.
That's good.
Yeah.
Really?
Excellent.
Wow.
That would be a difficult self with some of the composers today.
Yeah. I think what you've forgotten to do here is...
Is this?
The next major evolution after stereo was obviously 5.1 and then Atmos. I think maybe your Bond movies were the first ones in Atmos. Is that correct?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they were the first.
Oh, okay, but they were.
Yeah.
Well, you mixed the two before that. Were they in Atmos?
No.
Yeah.
No. I guess they were 7.1. I think Casino Royale was even 5.1, but maybe Quantum was 7.1.
Was there a reluctance to bring Bond into Atmos, or everyone was gung-ho?
I think it's like any tool, it's how you use it. Because for me, Atmos, it's also just about giving space to music and effects and opening things up. It's like when surrounds, when it draws your attention in a bad way.
That's a Sam Mendes thing as well, isn't it? It's like you're making me look away from the screen.
You're making me look away from the screen. And he's very specific about rains or things like that. It's like, I need one rain.
Yeah.
Or on one of the Bonds, this was something that the way his brain worked for Skyfall, I believe. But it's Bond, he's in a shack by the ocean. And the waves weren't right. And waves have their own rhythm. They just do. And so you record waves and you have waves that you're trying to cut to, but it just never was right with the score and with the feel. Sometimes I think our job is to say not so much what are you wanting me to do, but just how are you wanting to feel? And then because sometimes it's just hard to explain what they want. But if you say, I want to feel meditative, I want it to feel. So we had to cut the waves. They're not in sync if you look at it, but they're rhythmically exactly, it's like a meditative, the feel is right, but the visually, as somebody where you're looking at sync or whatever, sometimes you're just like, just look away. It's not.
Only a sound editor, not the audience.
You're right.
Because I mean, the waves that you can hear out of sync could be the ones that are just off screen.
Exactly.
It's a good way of looking at it,
Thanks
isn't
for that. I might use that one.
Thank you very much, everybody. This was really great. I'm glad that we were able to do this.
Great
Yes.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Fun
Brilliant.
for
Big thanks to Karen Baker-Landers, Michael Fenton, Mike Presswood-Smith, and Graham Hartstone for this talk about what it's like to work on the James Bond films. Getting to talk to Graham was kind of amazing. He's literally a walking legend. I also want to thank Formosa's Trident Studios for hosting us for this talk. It was amazing being there as well. I'm going to throw out a mention for the Motion Picture Sound Editors for sponsoring this series of episodes featuring the interviews I did while in England. They will also be sponsoring the second annual London Tonebender Sound Design Meetup coming soon on Sunday, August 24th at the Crown and Two Chairmen in Soho. To learn more about the Motion Picture Sound Editors, you can go to mpse.org. That's it for today. Thanks for listening to Tonebenders. Tonebenders is produced by me, Timothy Muirhead. Theme music is by Jim Guthrie. You can reach me via email through info@tonebenderspodcast.com. Follow Tonebenders on Instagram to stay on top of new episodes. If you like the show, you can help us out by spreading the word to your friends and colleagues, or leave us a tip. Just go to tonebenderspodcast.com and click support. Thanks for listening.